Hello, everybody. Greetings from Mexico. I have the pleasure to have here with us the very distinguished guest speaker representing the Mexican Treasury Secretary. I'm going to give a little brief introduction about his background and how we can have Mexico be showcased in this P3 unit. Miguel Sergio Celiceo Valdespino is currently the head of investments at the Secretaría de Hacienda y Crédito Público, which is the Mexican Secretary of Treasury. He has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in economy from the Instituto Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey. Also has a postgraduate degree from the London School of Economics and a master's degree in economy from the University of London. He has a very impressive academic credentials, but also he has a very impressive resume over the last plus 35 years working in the finance and banking systems and the development banks such as Bancomex, which is the Mexican exit bank that promotes trade, and Nacional Financiera, and Banobras, which has a particular interest because he developed the fund for creating of the carbon credits, and also instrumental in Plataforma Mexico, which is a pipeline of many projects. But he has worked as a Director General at Bancomex, also and worked for 5 years at Banobras, where he was in charge of the Committee for Finance and the administration of the general directorships. And like I said before, he has been working extensively over the last 25 years. Previously, he also worked at Secretaría de Hacienda from 1984 to 95. So this is coming back. He was invited by the Secretary of Treasury to come back and head this investment unit. This investment unit is all the major projects in Mexico go through this unit, including P3s. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Miguel. Miguel, bienvenido. Esta es tu casa. I will encourage everybody to please use the Q&A chat and participate in Spanish or in English or even in French. We have that capability. Miguel, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for the kind introduction. First of all, good morning to everybody from Mexico. Here in Mexico is 10 a.m. Good evening for all my fellows all over the world. I really appreciate your attention, your participation, and also your interest to see what we have been developed in our country in terms of the projects in this particular issue. Besides that, I also want to thank you, the organization WAPPP, because frankly speaking, I'm not fully aware of the development of this association, and as time passed by, I've been noticed the importance and relevance of this world association in all over the world. Certainly, what I see is a big elements to cooperate. It's something that I will propose at the end, some issues for your consideration for all the members and the people participate. But certainly, it seems that this is a world association that will help a lot Mexico in terms of the knowledge, the experience, and the cases that we have in place. What I have done today, once I have, thank you to all of you, I have prepared a presentation that basically, please go to the next page. Basically, the presentation that I have prepared is, I want first to introduce what is the Ministry of Finance and where we are located with all the Mexican government organization. What are the activities of this particular unit? Is called Unidad de Inversión. It's called investment unit. It basically, as Oscar refers, we concentrate all the major projects that raise in our country with the federal sources. How we are divided, what are the challenges that we have foreseen in this unit in particular? What is the difference that we have in our country between finance a project with fiscal funds coming from the taxes from the taxpayers versus the PPP schemes that we're trying to develop and learn from another experiences? What are the criteria for the PPP projects? Uh, why Mexico continues to be considered as a very important player in Latin America for the development of big projects? Who are them? And finally, a proposal that I want to submit for the forum, if this maybe makes some sense. The next chart, please. But basically, how we are organized in our country, we have the head of the Ministry of Finance. It's basically the Secretariat, the Finance, or the Ministry of Finance. Basically, we have two big under ministers under this organization. One is the Ministry of Finance and Public Credit. Basically, this minister leads with all the financial and debt management issues, and also all the financial issues and regulation in the country. In the other hand, we have the Ministry of Budget. Basically, we collect taxes from all over the country and we decide how to spend it. Within this ministry and the Ministry of Budget is the investment unit, because basically in the way that we operate, we have to organize, and we have to have a body in our country that decides whether or not to finance one particular project with the federal resource. Besides these two ministries, we have one in charge of the administrative office, one federal attorney office, and the treasury department all over the country. That's the organization of the Ministry of Finance in Mexico. Next one. The activities that we have here in the unit is, on the one hand, is coordinate the integration of the planning mechanism with federal agencies and entities, provide advice to federal agencies and entities in the preparation and presentation of the cost-benefit analysis and PPP structuring from the planning stage, monitor the physical and financial progress of the investment portfolio, support federal agencies and entities in search of financing alternatives. That particular issue, the number 4, is something that I will probably go a little bit more on not elaborate more on that sense. It support federal agencies. What we have been noticed in the last issues, the agencies of the Mexican government, like the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Marines, the Ministry for Transport, they are good to structure different projects. But one thing that is missing is, how do we finance this project? Then the experience that we have from previous jobs in terms to find out what are the best alternatives for financing through the World Bank, to the guarantee program of the World Bank, like MIGA, to the JVIC, to BPI, etc. All of them, they do have alternatives to support this financing for the projects, and it's something that we have to encourage to have a more strong department in that particular sense. Another activities is review methodologies and good practice in terms of socioeconomic evaluation, provide an opinion regarding the economic profitability, and supervise the correct application of the federal budget. In other words, basically, we have a law in Mexico that establishes that if we want to finance one particular project with federal budget, we need to fulfill certain requirements, whether the project will satisfy the social and economic benefits for the project, with more encourage on the social side. Then we want to make sure that the externalities on the social side are positive, And in that sense, this is what we trying to take more care on the analysis that we have here. Once we analyze the projects, once the project has submitted to the Minister of Finance to be developed, once they fulfill all the requirements, we provide a number, we call it a registro en cartera, which is a number that entitles the project to use federal government. This is the way that we operate. Next one, please. In terms of the unit that we have here, basically the whole country, Mexico, with 130 million people, we are divided in the unit, trying to attend the different project requirements raised by different ministers all over the country. Then there are some projects in terms of ports, airports, railroads, water plants, water treatment plants, lighting, etc. Then different agencies from the Mexican government are in charge of this development of the projects. And in the way that we are divided by ministers, by entities, and by sectors in order to cover all the financial and structural needs that our country requires. Next one, please. What are the challenges that we have in the unit? What we have identified, one is increasing participation of the investment unit with the federal agencies and entities in the planning of their investment program and projects, in order to strengthen the preparation and formulation of the projects. This is one of the issues that we have identified, that probably the planning event and the planning role, that should be more coordination with the federal agencies, because sometimes they plan their own projects, but when they have to match with the whole program for the whole country, we have some restrictions, and we delay in the development of the projects. The second one is to complement investment in infrastructure through the private financing and various national or foreign investment vehicles. In that sense, we have identified that using some of the mechanisms that we have today offered by different financial institutions, it could be very useful. And in that sense, the identification of these particular alternatives are not very clear for the agencies that design new projects in that sense. And the third one is to include variables to sustainable development, climate change, and disaster risk management in the socioeconomic evaluation. In that particular sense, 6 months that we arrived here to the investment unit, we identified that the agencies and the people responsible for the financial projects are not fully aware of the new mechanisms that try to provide the issues of sustainability, like SGD and all these particular sense. Then in that sense, we have been trying, because we know more or less how it works. We have some good relations with the German people from the GIZ, from the agency for development from France, etc. There are institutions who leads this particular issue in terms of sustainable development and the good methodology. Then in that sense, we are trying to promote more to the interior as a federal government to use this kind of tools and this kind of mechanisms to enforce and to highlight every time the sustainable development in the projects that we have in Mexico. Next one. What are the difference that we have in Mexico between the fiscal scheme and the PPP scheme? Basically, in the fiscal scheme, the state collect taxes, the state operates the own projects, and the state assumes responsibility and risk. This fiscal scheme, I will highlight, is basically the way that we have moved in Mexico in the last probably 3 years. Considering that and I would say, and in terms of the PP schedule, which is which I'm very convinced, and I think it's a very good tool to develop infrastructure in our country. We have maybe I was talking to Oscar, and what I understand it maybe I in another parts of the world and in another part that you represent part of these projects, we have in Mexico some developments of PPP projects with probably high rates of return on benefit of the investors. This situation has probably diminished the interest to use PPP. Then, in terms of the Mexican government, the alternative was because it's not very clear the fairness and that the internal rate of return that are in benefit of the investors are quite high, then let's choose to develop projects in Mexico with the fiscal scheme, with our own resources. However, this situation, probably in the last 3 months, I would say, has been getting greater in terms of that we have identified that the fiscal scheme is a good scheme, but it's not big enough to develop all the infrastructure projects in our country. Then we have to turn and to promote and to take care and to reinforce the quality and the and analysis of the PPP scheme. And certainly, I foreseen that the PPP scheme in our country will raise in a very exponential way in the last 3 years because two reasons. On the one hand, the fiscal scheme and the collection of taxes will not be sufficient to fulfill all the financial requirements that requires the infrastructure projects to be developed in Mexico. And in the other hand, we planning to have more control and more I would say more strong analysis in order to allow the PPP scheme to develop strongly in our country. What are the advantages that we have seen on the PPP advantage? Probably the advantage that you may share is long-term financing, more or less always. It's a convenient option as an alternative for the government in terms of spending capacity, increase investment levels in the country, improve efficiency of the provision of public services, and general social service that they have. Next one, please. What are the criteria applied for the selection of the PPP projects? The project interest may raise from a federal public office in a state or municipality through a process called the unsolicited proposal by the private sector. That particular issue, unsolicited proposal, has become more and more strong in our country. Why? Because sometimes the federal public office who wants to develop a bridge, who wants to develop a railroad, who wants to develop a new airport, etc., they are heavy involved in the development of the projects, but not in the planning itself. Then the unsolicited proposal coming from the developers in the area probably has been a very current way to develop more and more the process of infrastructure in our country. Second, we have a clear definition of social benefits, the scope of the infrastructure, and cost and implementation time, technically and economically viable projects, attractive projects for the market, their commercial viability is justified, value for money as PPP is superior to other types of scheme, including public sources, and the project is financially self-sustained or the government has sufficient resources to pay availability. Then the unsolicited proposal, I'm not sure whether or not it's quite strong and popular in other countries, but in a particular country, that has become a very important issue within the development of the in the last probably 3 years in terms of national infrastructure. Next one, please. we have, on the other hand, almost I would say probably 6 years ago, no, probably between 6 and 10 years ago, we participate in one particular forum, of infrastructure taking place in Sydney, Australia. And what we were told is that it was convenient to have a particular platform that promote the infrastructure projects overseas and to create more interest from overseas investors to participate. In that sense, we work hard in Mexico. We create one particular area which is new, and we created this particular place called Mexican Projects Hub.gov.mx. It's a link or infrastructure or projects, and we have in this particular link all the Mexican projects that operates in Mexico, and is currently is operated by the development bank in charge of infrastructure in our country, which is called Manobras. What is exactly this particular activity? Next one, please. What do we have in this particular platform? We have a platform we have all the portfolio projects with basically it's 195. We have which one are new, which one are in operation, where are the macro projects that we have in place, and basically where are the different vehicles, financial vehicles who are uh, available to raise money to finance this particular project. In additional information, we have basically all the information in terms of statistics for this particular project. Next one. In the platform, what on this platform, we have a description of the project. We have the legal structure in terms of the legal one and the financial one. We have the current situation. We can have the correct localization of the project with the Google Maps. We try to promote. We want to establish who are the main promoter of this particular project, and all the information requires. And you want probably to have one information. We fully recommend for those countries who are interested. You may have already. What we did was that 10 years ago, we have the participation and the collaboration of the British government in terms of design of this particular platform. We concentrate resources, and the platform is already in place. You can consult it, and you can see how it works in that sense. Next one, please. What are the most significant projects that we have in our country? We have different projects here in Mexico, but I would say that probably the most relevant, which one, the one that I would like highlight, probably the ones that have some news on international papers. We have four new train lines up to 2,000 kilometers. It's about $4 billion. We have four new airports under construction and the modernization of 20 more. We have 1,600 kilometers of new highways and the modernization of 3,000 kilometers. We had two new oil refineries, which is basically include the Dos Bocas, which is called in our country. We have seven ports modernization projects, and we have the 10 customs and border crossing modernization projects, basically all of them concentrated in the frontier that we have with the US. The total investment in infrastructure for these significant or more significant Mexican projects are about $30 billion. Next one. Finally, something that I will probably suggest is that here in our country, we have been experienced a situation where we have one particular project in front of us to be approved, and there is some concession for one particular toll road. There is some concession for some particular railway, some particular concession for an airport. Then probably to have the exchange of experience of these particular projects, where we can have some sort of data room between all of our countries. My sense is that could be quite useful. And let me explain you why it's the proposal, and probably if it is in place, sorry, I didn't find it. If not, please, I submit for your consideration. In the case of my previous experience that I have, I used to work for the Export Import Bank of Mexico, which is called Bancomex. Is the Export Import Bank. And in that particular, when I was there, we belong to one big organization called Unión Berna. Unión Berna is the association who has the 20 major Exim banks all over the world. And those Exim banks get together once a year, and they try to change the experience that they have in terms of the failure of payment for some particular products, or some particular cases or some particular countries, or they try to decide what are the right premiums to be charged, to be collected from different countries depending on the regional sense. Then it was a good forum. Considering the relevance of this particular WAPP forum, my impression is that we can have some sort of data room that strength best practice around the world. Try to basically we have some information. I mean, I understand it's very sensitive information for all of you to reveal all the issues of one particular project. But if I can go into this data room and say we are trying to construct a new airport in Mexico, it's 30 years, and the contract is the next person, probably if we can exchange experience between us and in a bilateral way, and to have the right contact, my impression is something that can be useful to share in that sense. But this is one of the proposals that trying to add some particular proposal from Mexico. This is something that I would like to suggest. The, in that sense, this is the presentation that we have. Then we are ready to have your questions, and I'm very happy to participate in this particular forum. We are very enthusiastic in our country. We are very enthusiastic in Mexico, and as I said, the PPP projects in our country is going to be developed very strongly, and certainly to know the best experience, the best practice that you have in all over the world will be very useful for us. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I leave you at the end my email and the email of my colleagues who are in the PPP projects in our country. In order you have any additional question, please feel free.
Thank you, Miguel. Outstanding presentation. What you just proposed is exactly what WAP is all about. This is, as the name says, the World Association of P3 Units and Professionals. So I encourage a lot of countries to be participating, because there's a lot of, as you well pointed out, there's a lot of information that's transferred, lessons learned from different countries with similar situations. That's very helpful. So that's something that you hit it right in the nose, that information and the transfer information of knowledge is very important. And also, you mentioned something about capacity building and strengthening. Certainly, we are promoting heavily a people first methodology, which is important to, as part of the toolbox, to promote putting the people first. It's called value for people. In addition to value for money, having that particular perspective, including the social aspects and also the sustainability. I think that's an important approach to have that, and to meet the commitments of the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have a lot of questions in the chat. I encourage everybody to please submit their questions, and we are multilinguistic. We can do it in English, Spanish, and French. So please don't be afraid. I'm really encouraged. But I got a question here. Um, Basically, the first question is, what is the institutional legal framework of P3s in Mexico? Can you give a little bit of explanation? How does that handle, and what's the history on that?
Yes, yes, sure. Basically, the PPP's legislation and regulation in our country is very robust. The legal framework we have been working for many years in that particular sense. That this development of the legislation raised in 2012, basically 10 years ago. We provide one particular law that was submitted to the Congress, and the regulation and the law that is established in our country establish the guidelines and the regulation that has to be fulfilled by the people who wants to be involved in the PPP area. This framework has been continually updated since that sense. And basically, what we're trying in that particular scheme, we want the we want to establish what are the conditions that has to be developed for the different projects under the umbrella of the PPPs. What are the required investment studies that has to be addressed to the Ministry of Finance? What are the regulation for this particular issue that I just mentioned, the unsolicited projects that we have also in place? What are the characteristics of the contracts that they may have to have? What are the risks that has to be divided between the private sector and the Mexican government? The cause of termination and expiration that we have, and also we can we can move in the PPPs area directly as a pure PPP, has a mixed PPP, or a self-financing PPP. Then I would say that in Mexico we have a robust framework for that particular sense. In addition, we're trying to convey and to have as a priority for this development the social benefits. This is something the social studies one of the I would say the key particular study or document that has to be addressed in that particular potential project to be developed under this scheme. Uh, all the PPP projects require federal public resources, and they has to be if this PP has to be developed and requires the involvement of federal resources or taxes or tax collection that we have, then in that sense, they have to have the approval of the means of finance.
Thank you. I have a question here from Larry Thanos. He's one of our outstanding WAPP members. What is the legislative changes have or are coming in Mexico to impact P3?
The legislation changes. I mean, as far as we know, the process that we have to analyze within the Mexican government is in September, and we haven't been addressed any particular changes that has to be developed. As I said, we update the law and we update the changes, but nothing has been already addressed to us in that sense.
I think it's important to everybody, before we go to the next question, that we have a very strong institutional framework. The law was passed in 2012. And in addition to that, we have a regulatory framework, and each state has its own P3 law. And that's the beauty and the opportunity that those laws are heavily strengthening the policy and the framework to develop projects. And you mentioned something about non-solicited proposals. That's something that dear to my heart. We at FEMSIC promoting heavily within our structure the non-solicited proposals, and that's something that at the municipal level could be very interesting. We have a question here from David Baxter. If I can David Baxter is the chair of the steering committee for North America. He's asking what sectors show the most promise in Mexico in
Well,
infrastructure.
I would say that we are an economy that is, I would say, underdeveloped in terms that the opportunities to develop in our country are many. Ports, airports, roads, all of them has room to maneuver in our country, and all the needs are very strong by the moment. But I would say, according to your question, that probably the most important project that we have in our country, from my point of view, and I would say that it's an official position for the government, but I almost convey with him or everybody, is one particular project is called Corredor Istmo. It's a project that basically is not a substitute of the Panama Channel, which is in Central America, but in the narrow part of our country, we have one particular project that where there will be some port development on the one side on the Pacific and on the other side of the Atlantic, and there will be big construction of ports which are now under construction, and there will be a train. Then the idea is that with all this situation that we have in terms of the exports coming from Asia to the big market, the biggest market in the world, which is the US. Basically, the idea is to have all the boats coming with merchandise to the port in Veracruz to take all the merchandise by train, 300 kilometers, and then go to the east market in United States. That is one of the major projects I would say that has more interest to be developed. By now, the train is almost 85% already constructed. The ports are almost 60%, and there will be in the middle 10 new parks, 10 new industrial parks to develop in that particular sense. There is already some interest for international big companies to establish in this particular area to create products, produce items to be exported to the United States. And besides that, I would say that according to what your question, uh, I would say that we have had by the moment one particular issue which is a very strong support from the U.S. government in terms that this particular project is also correlated to the issue of the migration from Central America to America. Then it has been called as a security belt, this particular
Oh,
trend, which is also a very interesting concept. Then I would say this is really a quick win project for our country, and we're trying to organize ourselves in order to promote to participate internationally. Everybody in the particular place. Then I don't know if I answered the question.
no, you did actually. That project, it is, I think, in my opinion, in addition to the Tren Maya and the other ones, the most important from the trade perspective. We want to leverage the U.S., Mexican, and Canada Accord. I think it's important to promote near sourcing trade. And so, and elaborate a little bit, I think also building up the infrastructure along the U.S. Mexican border with integration with rail, the ports of entries that you mentioned, and now this corridor will certainly be very helpful. It's all about improving the supply chains, also security from a security point of view. I think it's important. We just had La Cumbre de las Americas last week, and that was the main topic of how immigration is impacting. So I think that's an important thing. We have time, like 3 minutes, for another question. So I have one from John Christopher. He says here, can you elaborate a little bit? How can Banobras platform, Plataforma Mexico, which you described, be used more efficiently by international and local investment groups? Can you elaborate on that, please? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the moment the platform was elaborated, I personally have the experience to travel to UK and to talk to the people for infrastructure fund in UK. They give us all the guidelines and all the design and all the software, and we came to Mexico. We'll develop the platform, and the platform was oriented and by the moment located in Bananas, which development match for infrastructure in our country. But my impression is that we can try to bring this platform at the level of the central government, and in order to explore more the activities. By now, I would say this is a very important platform because today is working well. If you want to consult what is developed one particular project in the north of the country, the project that we just mentioned, the Corredor del Istmo, etc., all the information are there. I will invite you to consult it. It's very, very, very relevant. In order to promote for another experience in other countries, I would say that today with the technology moving ahead, I would fully suggest to have one platform like this, basically to summarize all the development of infrastructure. And probably something that we can do is to have best a section that we do not have, like best experience or best practice that we have in our country. I will be happy to assist you if in your interest to develop something in your countries. Please feel free. We we'll be more than happy to orient it, to tell you what we have done, uh, how we uh, how we structure this particular platform, and also to be on help for everybody.
This platform, I encourage everybody to access it. It has both in English and Spanish all the list of all the pipelines of the projects, be it done developed by the public sector and also through the P3 models and other alternatives also, not their certificates of infrastructure. I think the important thing is that also we have embedded the sustainability. There's a particular chapter for sustainability. And with that, I encourage everybody to also use international methodologies such as Envision, which is done by the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure, which FENSIC is also promoting hard. It gives you the opportunity to really measure that in a way that's more important. We have Siad. Hiad, you want to say some final words before we kick it out?
Yes, thank you, Oscar. I just wanted to come and thank Miguel for being with us today. It's an honor to have you, Miguel. We have a lot of people here that are interested in what's happening in Mexico. Brazil has shown a great, not only potential, but great series of transactions in PPP. They just did 10 airports. They've done many other things this year. So Mexico has that same promise. And I think you will find that there will be a lot of interest from investors and consulting firms and all kinds of people that are involved in this field to come and work with you. So I just wanted to thank you and thank Oscar, and looking forward to being with you and your team soon, hopefully, and thank our audience. And if I may finish, Oscar, by saying that the next session is starting soon, Peru. So, invite everybody to go and listen to what our friends in Peru have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siad. Yes, Peru is coming up. We have a lot of interest in Peru. We got a good friend over there, Jaime Lee. And Miguel, thank you so much for your participation. You got 1 minute for final comment.
Okay, well, needless to say, I'm very, very glad to see all of you, and I'm very proud to be honored to participate in this WAPP seminar and event. Is something that really very interested. I briefly I spoke to Alex Hayek about the possibility to join Mexico in this particular organization. I would say yes. This is something that we will be strongly interested. I will do my best here in Mexico to try to incorporate it as soon as possible. And considering the relevance that Mexico has in terms of big projects that we have under developed in this particular administration, I will be happy, and I think we can be very happy to share with all of you for the interests of the world, and also very committed with all our country's fellows, and trying to be more involved in these sustainable and development issues. I thank you for the invitation. It's a big honor also for me, and I also say hello to all people who are interested in listening Mexico participation.